Very excited tonight. I've got Daz Smith back on the Future Forecast podcast. Anytime Daz and I are together, we just start going into everything remote viewing, everything UAP. We just spent the last 30 minutes just catching up, and I realized everything we just said could have been a show in and of itself because our conversations are always just so much fun. So we're going to backtrack a little bit and try to bring some of this stuff and recreate the content that we just had because it was just fascinating stuff we were talking about. Daz, so good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, fine, and it's good to be chatting with you again. As you just said, we end up going down a multitude of rabbit holes within minutes.
I would say really, really fast. And we covered a lot of topics, right? Like
Yeah,
UAPs, psychic energy in general,
yeah,
different
yeah,
modalities of remote viewing. So yeah, it was exciting. Then we finally said we should be recording this. So
yeah,
where do we want to begin tonight? Do you want to go back to I know you're looking into some new UAP stuff. There's some new books that are out there, some more
yeah.
disclosure stuff going
That's a
on.
good place to start. Well,
Okay.
as we discussed, there's a new book by government insider, now whistleblower, Luis Elizondo,
Elizondo.
called
Yeah.
Imminent, that dropped, I think, around about, well, it's probably dropped 2 weeks ago, actually.
hmm
It hit number one on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
So yeah, it
Can,
did well.
can we pause for a minute and reflect on that? A man who's saying UAPs and psychic abilities are real is now on the New York Times bestseller list. I mean,
Yeah,
look at how far, I'm going to say we, because we've been in this,
yeah,
movement for a very long time. Look how far we've come. That's
yeah,
such, before it was like you were ridiculed, you kind of had to hide how much of this stuff you were looking into,
yeah.
and now it's on the bestsellers list. I mean, that's amazing to hear that. I love that.
Yeah, and all the he did the rounds as well. He did all the TV breakfast shows, all that kind of stuff. I think
Wow.
he's going to be or there's rumors that he might be testifying in Congress because they're doing a new congressional hearing. I think
Yeah.
this month actually. So he
Wow.
might be doing that. But it's the things he said in the book, and he's saying in his rounds. Some of it quite controversial
hmm
because he's essentially saying these aren't you know these aren't acting like friendly aliens, guys, here. Be aware of that. They're not acting like they got our best interests at heart, which I have
Right.
to be honest, that's fairly true. um
hmm
but he's also saying all kinds of things like the Roswell crash absolutely happened without doubt. There are crash retrieval programs. He even claims he held some of the Roswell crash material in his hands. The most interesting data he put out was about alien implants. He actually saw and held an alien implant that had been recovered from a US serviceman. And he saw the data about that being taken out. And the doctor was saying, and this is just amazing, that the implant had a film around it, which is like a biological film, which had
Yeah.
like these almost like Morgellon type tendrils.
hmm hmm
Um,
hmm
but the implant was self-propelled and self-powered, and they think it might be self-prepared by I don't know, maybe the heat or something to do with a biomechanical process of being in the human body. But it actually even tried to evade being taken out by the surgeon.
That's consistent with it's on documented on camera. Whitley Strieber's implant, when he tried to have it removed out of his ear, they grabbed a piece of it, and the guy goes, "It just moved. It just
Yeah.
moved up into your ear or whatever." So,
Yeah. And apparently,
wow,
the doctor was pretty freaked out that it actually tried to evade being cut out of the surgery.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
parasite, dude.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
yeah, he's been saying lots of things like that, as well as he said, he was uh partially trained in remote viewing as well,
hmm
by an ex-Stargate member in the
Yeah.
90s, which is interesting because that garnered a lot of attention in the UAP field, and now a lot of those are starting to want to know about remote viewing and take remote viewing a bit more seriously as well.
It's amazing, and I think you feel the same way. I feel that the bridge between UAP phenomena is or the connection between like humanity and UAP is remote viewing. If not remote viewing, some form of controlled, structured, intuitive process, right? That's
Yeah, consciousness.
verifiable and
Yeah,
blind.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's through and I think the people that are in the know have been saying that for quite some time.
yes, yeah,
Um, but I think that's the key. I mean, we've worked some targets where I think that's apparent. Where I mean,
absolutely, yeah,
there's even been and you've had those moments where you've felt like you were communicating with something, right? You've had
Yeah,
a few of those. I
definitely.
know I've had
Yeah,
one or two. And it's a unique experience, when you feel like whatever this is aware of. I mean, thinking about it now and just waking reality to how to explain the understanding that this is aware of me, and that it's feeding you information, because the information just feels different as it's coming to
yeah,
you in those
definitely.
moments,
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah, so I
yeah,
think that's where we're going, man.
lots happening in the UAP field. As I said, lots of whistleblowers, and there's lots of talk this last couple of weeks about Dick Cheney as well. Dick Cheney being head of the UAP program, knowing all about it, having a massive history that's going back. So that's starting to emerge, and even a new whistleblower woman came forward this week as well. I think she was head of some kind of congressional looking at UAPs and stuff like that. So, we are getting huge amounts of people come forward now. And I think the tide's turned now.
Yeah.
Even in the media, it's not when I first started looking at this in '89. If you in the media, anyone that looked into UFOs, you were a crackpot. A tinfoil hat.
Yeah,
But
100%. And you
now,
had to make a joke about it.
absolutely, now it's completely different. Everyone,
Hmm.
UAPs now or UFOs is, I think it's now become a serious topic, and the normal person in the street is even discussing that there's other life out there as well. So yeah, the
Yeah.
tables have turned on that one, and it's interesting to be part of it turning.
Yeah. To watch it turn. I remember we're going back, maybe 2017 is when the Tic Tac story broke. And not the Tic Tac, or that's when To the Stars came out and they released the Nimitz footage. That was
Yeah,
November of 2017, because I was right before I joined Future Forecasters, is when I was doing my own podcast, Pretty Heavy. Um, and I remember Tucker Carlson was the first person that mainstream that really acknowledged it. And I was very critical of him on my show, because I was like, dude, it's great you're having the discussion in a way that's respectful and giving credibility, but there's so many questions you're not asking that I know as a journalist, you're thinking, why aren't you asking, like, who the hell are flying these craft? He stayed
yeah,
away from it. He didn't explore it. And I remember being very frustrated. I mean, he's come really full circle now, I think, but
absolutely, yeah.
um, wow. And to see where it is now, it's incredible. It's absolutely
Yeah, it's
incredible.
like, and you can actually tell or feel that there's this conflict going on between, some of the people inside that know, that want to get it out, and the
Right.
others that don't want it to come out. And I guess that's because there are some big questions. I've heard some of the top people like Russ Colhart and a few others saying, people will go to prison because of what they've done, and there's possibility that there's some bad stuff happening, all kinds of stuff that may be the
How
reason why they say,
how bad are we talking? Like tied into, you think, abductions and experimentation on humans? You think that's what
yeah,
we're
and it could
talking
be,
about?
yeah, it could be even worse than that. It could be, people being killed, murdered, mutilated, and
Sold
they're
like
even
cattle.
stupid stories that have no evidence to support them about, humans being a food source and
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah, there. And I tread lightly on those topics, but I mean, even Travis Walton had an account way back when with Fire in the Sky. If you've ever seen that movie,
Yeah, yeah,
um, he said at one point he fell into a pot or something. There was like
yeah,
humans at varying stages of decomposition. Um,
yeah.
I
It's
don't know, Des.
No,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't think. I mean, and we can't think it's a black and white thing as well. There might be different scales of
Right.
non-humans doing different things. To be honest, bit like us as humans do. Some good, some bad, some completely evil, some
Yeah.
with ulterior motives. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know if we're ever going to get full disclosure because there's obviously been some stuff happening behind the scenes that could be construed or is I think is bad. If deals have been made, if people have been hiding stuff. I mean, there's even a talk today I saw that I think it was a quote from How Putoff or something saying that this stuff can't come out because some of the patents on some of the tech that came from craft would be classed as being illegal or something.
Really.
Yeah, so
That's a
you have to
big
think about
statement.
all that kind of.
There's a lot of fallout that would come from it. That's
I
for
think so.
sure.
Yes, yes.
Daz, have you had in your life, do you think you've had experiences with things like outside of remote viewing when you're going to look for it? Do you feel like you've ever had anything?
Um, Not that I remember, but in my early years of, I mean, my whole family had experience all my life, and we used to have neighbors that used to say they used to
Hmm.
see like balls of light going
Right.
in through the windows of our house and stuff, and
Hmm.
we moved house at least once because of the whole family was experiencing poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
when I was 15 years old, I had for around about a year, I had these bad instances of where I was having continual nosebleeds, and the doctors couldn't
That's
find what
Hollywood, dude. Yeah.
the source of me having continual, really, really bad nosebleeds. And
Yeah.
I read the communion books and that kind of stuff, so
Uh-huh.
I know what that might mean. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
yeah,
man.
and other stuff as well, and stuff I haven't really talked about.
Hmm.
And I don't know the origin of it all really, but there was me and another girl when I went through the school system here in the UK, and I'm talking very young years from probably about the age of 5 to about the age of I think 12. There was me and another girl in the school, and once a year for a week or two of the year, we were both not at the same time, but I know she was doing it as well. We were both taken out of class for a period or for something like 7 or 8 years there. And we were both, only the two of us, we were both put through loads of scientific and all kinds of testing by some kind of, I can't remember exactly what it was about. I was signed up for some,
MI6.
I don't know what it was. I was signed up for some kind of scientific program where they would study me for
Wow.
years but actually
Wow.
in school. So I was taken out of class, taken to another class, and I had to go through. I had to do like medical stuff, and I had to do all these weird papers and psychological testing, and that went on for years until I left school. So there's weird things like that I went through and stuff. So I don't actively remember anything, but maybe there's weird stuff happened.
I think this is so complex, Daz. I do think that like with something like that orchestrated, it could be the government studying you.
Mm.
I also wonder if and suspect that some of them have got to be walking among us in some way, shape, or form,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
they've got to be here.
it goes
And it might
back
not
to
even be alien, right? I mean, I'm not convinced that everything is
yeah,
alien.
yeah. We don't know interdimensional. They could
Just
have been here
old
longer than that.
Earth. I mean,
Yeah,
how old is this planet? What happened to, Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu and all those
and
places?
it all goes back to some of the stuff from Pat Price as well in
Yeah,
72 and
yeah,
73.
yep.
He detailed in his 47-page RV report that he did, and he gave to How Put Off that every area of human society had already been infiltrated, and
Hmm.
he actually wrote down in which parts of government,
Yeah,
science, society, and financial systems, religious systems. He even wrote down which ones have been infiltrated, and that some of these non-humans were within society making us fight against each other with wars and all this kind of stuff to keep us looking in one direction while they did what
right.
they wanted to do in another direction.
Yeah, it's a distraction, right? So we're not
Yeah.
involved and going to try to put a stop to it or protect ourselves if we can even. And maybe they just want us to believe that we're not capable of defending ourselves. I am a firm believer that we are capable of much more
I
than
think
we're
we are
aware of.
now. I think the data is indicating, and some of the whistleblowers are indicating this as well, that over the past 4 or 5 decades, we now have amassed some weaponry that can fight back against the
Yeah.
technology that they're using against us in some way.
Well, beyond the technology, I think even just our own consciousness, our own intuitive abilities. Um, we're only scratching the surface, right? And we're not quite organized well enough yet. But I guarantee if we could get enough like well-disciplined intuitives together to
Yeah,
create a concentrated, focused effort on a specific event, target, movement, influence, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure there's a lot we could do.
yeah.
Maybe
I
that's a
mean, there
dangerous
is
thing to
even
say. But
I think Pat Price details it in his files, and there are several other people as well, that there is some kind of non-human mechanism on the planet here
yeah,
to hinder
to hinder it.
psychic abilities
Yeah.
in humans, to keep us under
Hmm.
control, because if they didn't, then we'd be able to maybe meet them on their own terms.
Yeah. Well, I think, like a signal that I mean, David Icke talks about it with the Saturn moon matrix. Maybe that's what the same one and the same thing. If you ever want to go down a fun rabbit hole, look for David Icke with the Saturn moon matrix for those that haven't seen that. But for the longest time when I was younger and I was trying to develop, like probably in my 20s, really trying to push through with, no guidance or training, just my own intuition. I remember I would meditate, and so often I'd write down, I feel like I'm in a cocoon and I just can't burst through this layer that's around me for some reason. I can't escape it. Some of us do. Some people, and I think I've bypassed that now, but some people
Mhm.
naturally just go past it for whatever reason. And maybe it's a frequency thing. I don't know. I mean, we're
Yeah,
totally down a rabbit hole of speculation right now. Um,
absolutely. Yeah. But yeah,
but I think
as we
it's
said,
important.
lots happening. Where this is
Yeah.
going to take us, I do not know at this stage. As I said, I think there's a big fight going on. Some people want disclosure, some people don't, because
Yeah.
because of the implications of it. Yeah, we'll have to see what comes out over the next few years with this, really. But it's gathering a pace, and we're not as loony as people once thought we were.
I know, man. It feels so good. Like,
It does.
but I'm comfortable being loony at this point. I don't really care. But at the same time, it's nice to have that validation that like
Yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
crazy. Like I am
Yeah.
crazy, but I'm not
For,
crazy.
for many years, I had people, whenever I mentioned anything to do UAPs and stuff, they would laugh.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they're
They
not
don't know what to
laughing.
do with it.
Yeah, they're not laughing so much anymore.
Right.
Um,
But what's interesting is the mainstream is now coming to terms with the possibility that something else exists,
yeah.
and we're now exploring like consciousness communication through varying dimensions, through altered states, and then I mean, just looking at the wackiness of time,
Mm.
right? And the ability, like, so there's a whole other realm of weirdness that I think,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
still need to broach. But, I want to share, I'm not going to share much, but just talking about like the possible encounters stuff. Um, there's certain things I haven't talked about publicly on air, but I want to say this is that I had a dream one night that involved being afraid of the small children out front of my house, and that dream ended. And later, like a week later, I had an experience with my son. It was at night, but we were taking a walk. And when I looked down at him, he was like 3 years old. He was just really short, holding my hand. The memory, Daz, was less than half a second. It was so fast. It was such a short blip, but it
Yeah.
was a memory.
Mm.
And I just remember saying to myself, like, I remember a lot of encounters that I've had that have been
Yeah.
spooky and paralysis, and there's something in my room or a strange light. But this was a new level, man. Like I was being led. And that's all I remember. And I was
Yeah.
like, and what scared me was the realization that there are things that are happening that I don't even have an inclination that something happened. Like
Yeah.
before, I thought, oh, I knew because I woke up and I knew I had a funky night. But this
Yeah.
was like, this memory was buried so deep, and it somehow crept out because the conditions were right to like almost identically replicate it. It
Yeah.
was that messed me up for a little bit. That
Mm.
really, it's scary.
Yeah.
So who knows how many people, how many of us are being affected by this?
Absolutely. As I said, I don't have any clear indications, but there are some hints in my history
Right.
that some weird stuff has happened, and I just haven't
Yeah.
found a mechanism to go down that rabbit hole, or wanted to really to
Yes.
investigate any further.
That could be, I mean, that could be traumatic, you know?
Yes, yes, and if I don't want to go there. I'm not sure. I don't know. I really don't know. It's not anything that I've had an inclination to want to delve
Right.
into.
Right.
I am kind of curious about why I was tested all those years and what that was about.
Yeah.
All I remember is when I was, because they contacted me again, the people that are doing the test, when I was about, I think it was about 20.
Uh-huh.
And they sent me a letter saying, "Would you like to continue your test?" And I was getting a bit rebellious at that age, and I just sent a reply back saying, "No, I never signed up for any test in the first place. Just leave me alone." I wish I kept
Yeah.
that letter now. Then I
I was gonna
would
say,
be.
you know who sent the letter?
I vaguely remember it was a university and with science
Yeah.
something or other here in the UK, but yeah, I don't remember any more than that.
Yeah.
It was just weird. I went for all those years of psychological and medical
Yeah.
testing without knowing
Yeah.
what that was about and why
Oh,
my family signed me up for it in the first place.
oh, your family signed you up for it.
Yeah, yeah, they must have signed me up for it because they, as I said, they took me out of classes at school to do it
Hmm.
every year for like
Yeah.
8 years or more.
Jeez.
Just me and one other girl.
Yeah. I'd be curious to hear more about that and why and who they
Yeah, yeah,
are.
it's
And
something that's always like, with my family history and what I've got into
yeah.
all these years, it's like, and you hear things about people being tested in secret programs and stuff. It's like,
Right.
I kind of
Yeah.
went through something like that I don't really know why I was being tested.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever wonder if, like, with situations like that, and given like where you are right now and what you're doing, do you think there's a
Yeah.
possibility that there's been a hidden hand, like just giving you a little nudge in a certain direction every so often?
The thought has crossed my mind because it was during that testing was when I started getting into the kind of stuff that's been
Yeah.
my pathway in life, this
Yep.
paranormal interest.
I'll tell you, I've had times where I've been at crossroads in my life and I'm like pursuing this path. And it's like the moment of once I get through this little piece of a process that I'm being cryptic on purpose, but like that I was super prepared for. I remember that moment. I'm not one that cracks under pressure. I'm not one that like this is something that I was very good at. All of a sudden I get hit with awful brain fog and said the dumbest shit. And I remember walking out like, that is not me. That's not my personality. And it totally changed the course of my life,
Yeah.
and it's like, why did that happen? Man, maybe I had a bad day, but I know my mind. I know me
Yeah.
under those types of conditions. And in the moment, I thought that it was weird. This is
Yeah.
back in my 20s again. So who knows? Maybe there are things that give us nudges in certain directions.
I think there definitely is more, more to life
Yeah.
than even we know, and we're exploring this on a daily basis as well.
Yeah. I will add, this was when I was just coming out of my intelligence line of work, trying to get into a similar line of work in that field. So I'm wondering if there was something going on. So yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? Wow. Yeah, I'll be excited to see where it goes. I'm
Yeah.
glad, I just listened to somebody on Sean Ryan. I don't remember which guy it was. It was one of the psychic guys, and he specifically mentioned Luis Elizondo, but he flat out said he's like, that guy's under attack all the time. People trying to
Yeah.
discredit him and shut him up and so
He's getting
that's
a
got to
lot
be
on
tough.
Twitter. Yeah, on Twitter, he's getting a lot of attacks, and you can kind of see by the way they're doing it that it just has this disinformation kind of feel about it. It feels like
Right.
someone's trying to discredit him and rubbish him with the most
Right.
silliest of things in the remote, not remote viewing, sorry, the UFO community. But I've seen
Right.
this kind of stuff going back decades now.
That's
You
Richard
can
Doty, remember? Like just
absolutely,
that
yeah, yeah,
disinformation. It's awful.
yeah.
And again, it comes back to why. I mean, obviously, a lot of people would get in trouble, but beyond that, I just want to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think we're close to having. I mean, we are getting feedback anyway because we're having all these top people in top
Right.
places. I mean, the amount of generals and intelligence people that have come forward this last month is just crazy.
Yeah.
So we do have confirmation. Really, we pretty much do have disclosure. It's just that now we've had disclosure. Like most of us, we want more.
You know what though, Des? I've been listening to some of these generals, not that, well, yeah, some of these generals, some of these colonels. I've been listening to some of their interviews. And at the end of the day, I feel like they're just as curious and in the dark as we are,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They've all had an experience in the course of their professional duties.
yeah,
So they have some technical understanding of what these craft do, but they have no clue what's going on. So they're
yeah,
acknowledging something exists. But in my opinion, I could sit across the table from that guy and we'd have the same outlook of like,
yeah.
I want to know what this is.
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
may be read on to a program understanding your technology can
Yeah.
capture their movements this way, but you don't have a clue what it is. Just like I don't have a
No.
clue what it is.
Even those guys that are read into this, the SAPs, the special access programs,
Yeah.
even they're very limited in what they get to know within a
Right.
very narrow beam of intent of that program itself.
Right.
Yeah, so
Right.
no one has the whole picture on what's going on with this thing.
I don't think we've gotten anybody lately, maybe Grush, but beyond him, anybody like a Bob Lazar, right? That
No,
he had glimpses of,
yeah,
I'd say, even though it was compartmentalized, he had a pretty good glimpse of a bigger picture going on,
yeah,
and probably a tiny aspect of the big picture, but
yeah.
he seemed to have little pieces that he was able to put together of something greater.
Hopefully there'll be more soon. I mean, we've been promised that there are more people lining up to come forward, so
Right.
it's a case of watch this space really.
Yeah, but do you think it's going to be just more testimony that like, hey, we saw this craft, we saw that craft, we know this type of like, or do you think it's going to
No,
be,
it's more
I
than that.
talked to an alien, you
Yeah,
know?
it definitely is more than that. It's a lot more substantial.
Yeah,
The only thing that might worry me slightly is the narrative behind it all is,
right,
and I have to agree with it to some degree, is that for the most not looking like a good picture. It's not looking
right,
like, hey, these non-humans are here for human spiritual development.
right,
It's almost like
right.
they're here to do what they want with their thing.